I never thought I would be the victim of our neighborhood's most infamous HOA president. But here we are when I relocated to Oakwood Estate. 6 months ago, I was warned about Karen Matthews. By several neighbors, look out for Karen. They'd warn with knowing grins she follows very strictly the rules of the HOA that turned out to be the understatement of the century. I'm a corporate lawyer by profession, so I'm used to reading fine print and understanding rules before moving in. I read all of Homeowners Association rules, decided to be a model neighbor. The community was lovely, neat, well-maintained lawns, attractive homes, and a sincere feeling of ownership. What I hadn't prepared for was Karen's special interpretation of the rules, which seemed to change depending on her mood or who she had in her sights. Our first meeting was fairly harmless. She left a printed pamphlet on my door about my trash cans. In view from the street, I had placed them at the back of a small decorative fence. But obviously, that wasn't enough. Trash receptacles must be completely out of sight, save on designated collection days, the sign read, with completely underlined 3 times in red pencil. I complied, moving them to my garage and figuring that would be the end of it. Wasn't 2 weeks later, I received another notice about my lawn being a 1/4 inch too high. I measured it myself. She was truly right, but the validity of her complaint was absurd. Again, I gave in, rearranging my yard maintenance schedule. I value peace in my living quarters, and these were minor inconveniences. Worst case, the real hassle began when my brother came to visit for a week. He parked his car, a slightly older but better kept sedan, in my driveway 3 days into his stay. Karen called at my doorstep at 7:30 in the morning. I opened it up to find her clutching her clipboard. Her blonde bob well-groomed for an early hour, and her face set in what I'd learned was her official business face. "Good morning, Karen," I stated, striving to make my voice light, despite being nearly caffeine withdrawn. "What can I do for you today?" "That car out in your driveway." She spat at a clipped tone with a sweep of her gesturing dramatically at my brother's car. "It's in violation of Section 8, Paragraph 4 of our community guidelines." I blinked, truly bewildered. I've read the guidelines carefully. There's nothing that prevents guests from parking in my own driveway. Karen's eyes narrowed as she searched through her clipboard. The guidelines clearly state that no vehicle in disrepair can be viewed from the street. That car has a tiny dent in the rear bumper, and the paint is weathered on the hood. I had to bite my tongue so as not to laugh. "Karen, with all due respect, that is my brother's daily vehicle. It is in good working condition and properly maintained. A minor cosmetic blemish does not amount to disrepair by any common sense definition. I'm the president of this HOA," she declared, her voice rising slightly, "and I have the authority to determine what is a violation. That vehicle has to be removed in 24 hours, or you will receive a fine of $100 per day. I'm generally a peaceful kind, but her capricious enforcement was beginning to try my patience. Let me see where in the bylaws it gives the president unilateral authority to interpret guidelines without board authorization." I called upon my lawyer instincts in play. Karen's face read, "I don't owe you any explanation. 24 hours, or you'll hear from our attorney with that." She whirled and stormed away, her clipboard stuck in her chest, grasped like a shield. That evening, I read through the HOA bylaws again and confirmed what I felt she was going beyond her authority. I sent a friendly but assertive email to the entire board, CCing Karen, explaining the situation and requesting clarification on the vehicle policy. I attached photos of my brother's car from a variety of different angles, demonstrating that it was in perfectly good enough condition, considering the cosmetic problems Karen had fixated on the next morning. I arrived at work early for a large client meeting. My brother had a consultation as well, so he took an Uber and left his car in my driveway during my meeting. I received a couple more, and increasingly frantic texts from my next-door neighbor. "Michael, Karen is at your house. She's looking super angry, dude. I'm pretty sure she's doing something to your brother's car. I'm recording this. You're going to want to see it." When I finally came out of my meeting and checked my phone, I had a video from Michael that chilled my blood. There was Karen in broad daylight, employing a key to scratch deep scratches along the side of my brother's vehicle. She wasn't even attempting to try to be sneaky about it after keying the entire passenger side. She broke out a permanent marker and scribbled violation across the windshield. The video prominently showed her face the act of vandalism and even caught her smug expression as she glanced at her handiwork. Before walking back towards her house 3 doors down, I immediately called the police to report the vandalism I sent them. Michael's video as evidence, then called my brother to tell him, feeling bad that his car had been vandalized in retaliation because of my grievance with Karen. To his credit, he reacted better than I would have, essentially saying, "Well, at least now it's definitely in a state of disrepair," which, which made me chuckle in spite of the situation. The police took 30 minutes to arrive after seeing the videotape and collecting evidence from Michael and myself. 2 officers proceeded to Karen's house from my driveway. I could observe her vigorous movements through her front window since she was talking to the officers. Even from a distance from me, I knew that she was in denial, perhaps inventing something to claim how she behaved reasonably about 20 minutes later. I watched in utter dismay as officers removed Karen from her house. Handcuffs on her face was a scowl of anger as they stuffed her into the back of the patrol car. One of the officers returned to fill me in. "We're charging her with criminal mischief and vandalism," he explained. "The damage is over $1,000, which is a felony here in this state." The video footage is pretty incriminating, and she still had the marker and keys in her bag. I was flabbergasted. "I didn't think you were going to arrest her today. I thought that there would be an investigation first." The officer shrugged. "Sometimes people make our job easy. We found other videos on her phone of other cars. She's crashed in the neighborhood, apparently. You weren't her first victim. Just the first one with security camera footage to document it." As Karen's patrol car drove away, several neighbors came out from their homes, having seen the commotion. Many came up to me with their own Karen stories. Gardens ruined for being non-compliant decorations. Ripped away without notice. Anonymous complaints. Complaints that were brought against them for fantasy violations. It seemed like I had accidentally stumbled upon a reign of terror that had been going on for years. 2 days later, an emergency HOA meeting was held. I attended, and nearly every single homeowner in the complex. The vice president, being a retired judge by the name of Robert, moderated the meeting with the reasoning that Karen was immediately placed on suspension, pending the determination to her case. The board voted unanimously to remove her for good on grounds of gross misconduct and abuse of position. They also voted to reimburse the repair bill for my brother's vehicle from the HOA's legal fund, a gesture I was grateful for, but graciously declined. Karen's legal troubles didn't end with the criminal charges the district attorney pursued aggressively. The case, particularly after more victims came forward 3 weeks later. I was in the courtroom as the judge handed her down her sentence: 6 months in county jail, 3 years on probation, $15,000 in restitution and fines, and 200 hours of community service. Plus, she was also prohibited from serving on the board of any homeowners association for 10 years. As the judge read out the sentence, Karen's perfectly groomed exterior at last broke down her face, contorted in incredulity, and she turned to look back over her shoulder at the members of the community gathered in the courtroom. "But I was just following the rules," she wailed out, her voice breaking. "I did everything for the sake of the neighborhood." The judge peered at her behind his spectacles. "The rules are for all, Ms. Matthews," he declared unflinchingly, "including you.